Okay, this video is called Rules for Better Thinking. And this comes out of a couple things. I learned some tricks to help improve one's ability to think. And also, I went to the grocery store. This is actually a couple years ago, but I just sort of found this video, so I decided to make it. And I saw on the Crest toothpaste, 95% of the toothpaste in a regular grocery store have fluoride in them. And it made me sad to see that, because what it means is most Americans, they don't know fluoride's rat poison. It shouldn't be in your toothpaste. It has a minimal, if any, beneficial effect on teeth for preventing cavities. And, in the tap water, there's not only fluoride, there's also aluminum, which is another major neurotoxin. Fluoride's a neurotoxin. They're also gonadal toxins. So they're toxic to fertility. They lower IQ. They increase the risk of dementia. They're major poisons, okay? And this is a little picture from Lead Safe Mama. She tested this toothpaste here, and they found that it was super high in lead. Okay, it was like close to 8,000 times above the recommended amount of allowable lead. It was really high in mercury, high in arsenic. It's a disaster. Okay. Yeah, I don't use any toothpaste. I just brush, because all you're trying to do with brushing is to get the plaque off your teeth, the biofilm that the bacteria hide in, because they can't cause a cavity unless they're attached to your tooth, because they take the sugar, run it through glycolysis, anaerobic metabolism, and pump out the lactic acid. Then the acid burns a hole in your tooth. So if you get them off your tooth by removing the biofilm, then they can't cause a cavity. The toothpaste, you don't need it. All right, so anyways, here's a couple quotes. Let's see, what's the purpose of the human brain? To walk down a path in a forest, a jungle, or survive. All right, but here's some really good ones. There's always a good reason, and then there's a real reason, from Thomas Carlyle. So yeah, most of the time somebody's going to give you some song and dance, some smoke and BS to make them sound noble and good, and they're really just trying to rip you off. So know the difference between a good reason and the real reason. If you think there's a contradiction, then recheck your premises, from Ayn Rand. She said, contradictions don't exist. Whenever you think you're facing a contradiction, check your premises. You will find that one of them is wrong. That's usually the case, too, because I had a lot of thinking problems. I couldn't understand certain things in my life, especially in my social life. But once I went down that path, I understood it. Next thing is consilience. Consilience means in aggregate. So if you have only one evidence that supports a conclusion, that's kind of weak evidence. But if you have two small things that support it, that's getting better. 3 small things, getting stronger. 4, 5. Each one by itself is only a weak piece of evidence, but all 5 together in aggregate supporting your conclusion. That's a strong conclusion. And that's how you have to make a lot of decisions. That's called inductive logic. Deductive logic is when you have all the information. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. Okay? It follows from the initial premises. But inductive logic is more like, add up your observations. Do they all match the same pattern, converging on the same conclusion? Then it's probably true. Always ask yourself, am I being chunked? It's just Lucy holding the football for Charlie Brown. All right, here's a good quote by Michael Lewis from Liar's Poker Book. In every deal, there's always 2 partners and a chump. And if you don't know who the chump is, then the chump is you. Okay, that is true. Okay, another quote from Cicero, cui bono, who benefits? Because usually the person who benefits is the one pushing it. And a lot of times it's coming from, from power up above, the big money, the big corporation or whatever. It's pretty rare anybody ever does anything nice for poor people, regular people. Average person's, the modern version of a peasant, okay? And always ask yourself, why are they doing this? They're always going to spout off the corporation or the rich person. Oh, this is for everyone's benefit, everyone's benefit. Yeah, right. Most of the time, if you look closely, it only benefits them, Let's see. He says, here's a good one, Carl Jung. If you want to determine why a person did something, always ask yourself, what are the likely consequences of their actions? And that's probably why they did it. And if it's not good for you, then they didn't do it with your best intention at heart. What I learned to ask myself is, why did a person do this? And I would ask myself, how would they like it if I did this to them? Like if my ex-wife said something to me that I thought was kind of nasty, and then I asked myself, well, if I said the same sort of thing to her, how would she like it? Oh, she would get pissed off. Well, then she did it to be mean. And that's like, because, socially, academically I'm a lot smarter than her, okay? But I'm a lot smarter than any of my split tails. But socially, they're smarter than I am, okay? So I got to be careful socially when I'm dealing with them. They're always playing games. I'm thinking about my next book or some other idea or procedure I got to do the next day. They're thinking about social manipulation. So I got to be careful on my feet to keep up with them. Okay, John Boyd, Colonel John Boyd, a genius. Pilate. He said, if you want to understand something, extrapolate it out to the extremes or examine its opposites. Yep. As a matter of fact, what I've always found a very useful question is ask yourself, what if the opposite were true? And you'll be amazed how often that provides the correct answer. Because that's tons of times the correct answer. Most American institutions are the opposite of what they pretend to be. The public school is not to educate your child. It's to damage your child's brain, to make them stupid, turn them into a chump, okay? And there's a lot of things that are like that, okay? Let's see. Here's a typical thing. Psychiatrists are supposed to prevent mental illness, but they actually cause mental illness by treating chemical imbalances, but they cause chemical imbalances with their drugs. So they cause mental illness. There was some quote like that, sort of it flips back on itself. You can call it antithesis or chiasmus. And there's like the one about psychoanalysis. Psychoanalysis is the disease it pretends to treat. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is, if somebody is putting fluoride in your toothpaste, fluoride in your water, rat poison, that means they don't like you, okay? They're just lying to you saying it's good for your teeth. That's a way to chump you. If somebody puts toxins in your food, glyphosate, atrazine, that means they don't like you. They're just going to give you some BS. You get better crop yields, equal crop yields from organic. You don't need this non-organic BS to get crop yields. That's all BS, a song and dance to sell you stuff to chump you. Okay, it's good to know 5 blind men and an elephant is sort of like an Indian proverb. So basically, each blind guy feels part of the elephant. One guy feels the tail, says it's a rope, feels the side, says it's a wall, feels the ear, says it's a rug, the trunk, the tusk says it's a spear. And the point of it is, you want to be like all 5 blind men put together to examine the subject from multiple different points of view, and then you can put it all together and say, oh, what could match all these descriptions? It's an elephant. Okay, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to get the big picture, the bird's eye view by which you can see it objectively. And a good quote by Aristotle, he says, the first step to an intelligent conversation is to remove emotions. Just objectively try to perceive, because when you do that, you'll be more open-minded to truth. All right, so I'll show you one painting here by Caspar David Friedrich. He painted this in 1817, Wanderer Above the Sea Fog. And this is the idea, it's called a Rückenflüger, meaning that you look from behind and you imagine yourself in the picture and you're looking out over the sea fog. And the point of it is you're up above with a bird's eye view. You can see the situation objectively, and then you can, without any emotion involved, say, well, gee, this is my best option. That's what I'm going to do. So you can make an intelligent decision, and that makes you smarter.